G'day everyone, how you going? And welcome to another global update here on the 13th of November. We're just about finished the year. Um, it's uh, interesting what's going on in the world, as always, and good to see everyone coming on in here. Sorry, my microphone just went wonky. Okay, good to see everyone, and let's get into it. I'll try and keep it short and sweet. Okay, so continue on our global trends section. The US government shutdown has come to an end finally after 43 days. Man, it was an absolute monster. It's done a bit of damage to the US. 670,000 government employees affected. Absolutely monstrous. 43 days, all because of basically ideology and people just trying to score points for um, their next election. And that's where we are in the world, though, and we're seeing it everywhere. We're just even seeing the crap that's happening in the European Parliament at the moment is just absolutely mind-boggling. But it's done. The government's reopened. Trump signed the bill last night or this morning, our time, and opened up the government. So let's see where it goes. The House Dems and the House Republicans are both saying it's a win for them, but expect some major shake-up, especially in the Dems. There is a big fissure now opening up between the old Dems and the new Dems, with the AOCs of the world and the Bernie Sanders, the very socialist Dems, pretty much in control of the Democrat Party now. But anyway, it's good to see the US government's open. And that leads us to, RIP New York. My God, I didn't think they'd ever go back there. New York's done this several times, 70s, 90s. And every time it's had to try and clean itself up. And um, and that's becoming a cycle for New York City. And they're back into now a very bad cycle. If Zohar Madani does 40% or 30% of what he says he's going to do, New York will be a waste town. And I've spoken to friends of mine that have business in New York, and they don't have business in New York anymore. It is gone. The financial sector has been fleeing New York for several years, but basically the tap has just gone full open now. 18,000 millionaires on record so far have fled New York, predominantly to the south, Florida, Texas. And funnily enough, a stat that I found when I was doing a bit of research on this was there is now more financial sector workers from the major banks in Dallas, Texas, being around 510,000 compared to 400 odd thousand in New York. So the financial sector has fled the city, um, and has predominantly opened up in Dallas, being the major banks, and hedge funds and financial investment in Florida. So pretty much all the big fund managers have moved their headquarters to Florida, and the big banks have moved to Dallas. A couple of things have done that. One, New York, too expensive for their employees. Two, the laws in New York are just not compatible with finance anymore. And the third one is the regulations, the corporate regulations that have been coming out of Delaware and New York with the court cases, and this was highlighted by Elon Musk's case. that it's just no longer best business practice to be registered in Delaware or New York. So places like Texas are restructuring their laws and have done for the last probably 10, 15 years to make it very business friendly. The Dallas is opening a stock exchange next year. It's pretty much in place now, but I think it's February next year that they're aiming for a launch of they're calling it the Texas Stock Exchange, the TXSE, and they have quite a few companies already that are slated to move to the market. It's predominantly going to be for large corporations rather than small corporations at this stage. But let's just see. I think we'll find that they'll have a competing stock exchange on the hands, and New York will lose more and more business. And one of the interesting things is 30% of all taxes in New York are paid by less than 10,000 people. So if 18,000 millionaires are moving, and New York only had 50 odd billionaires, most of those are probably leaving now, if they haven't already. So it just goes to show you that money moves when you do stupid things. And a lot of the times you just can't tell the voters that because they just want free stuff. So sad to say it, but RIP New York. Now, this has been a growing topic, and it just highlights how much war is coming, especially into the EU. The EU is hell bent on war, and pretty much hell bent on war at any cost, which is going to be detrimental. The EU won't survive past 2030, 2032. It will be nothing more than a whole heap of individual countries again. I expect countries like France, Germany to split back probably to their provinces of years gone by. And we'll then start seeing the Eastern European countries really split from the EU, especially once they realise that they're just going to be used as cannon fodder. The EU wants war more than ever now. Ursula van der Leyen, or whatever her name is, has pretty much as much said so in the European Parliament this week. And Croatia, in the last couple of weeks, has come out and said that it's re-establishing military conscription. That means there's now 10 EU nations that have some form of military conscription for males and females 18 to 30. Greece has always had it, but you've got Latvia, Poland. France has a very small wedge conscription service that they've started. Germany's getting ready to bring in conscription, and so is Spain again. But there'll be a big push for this. They need young people to send off to war, because basically the EU wants war with Russia, and it's as simple as that. The EU thinks that the only way out of its financial and social issues is to have a war. The sad part about it is the refugees and the immigrants that they've been flooding into the country. They will offer them citizenship for military service, and I expect to see the same in a lot of countries around the world that have allowed large groups of migrants in, especially migrants that are not culturally compatible with the country. They will offer them military service for citizenship. Then they'll be shipped off to fight a land war in Europe. Basically, cannon fodder. We'll give you citizenship here. but you'll get a bullet once you hit the beaches over there. So, not a um, good sign for the world. We're only getting worse and worse where we're headed, but it's starting to come out now. People are starting to see it. It's starting to get reported in the news outlets rather than just being talked about on podcasts. So let's hope people take heed and change the momentum. Our friend Bill Gates, last end of October, so last week ish, he had a great big backflip on climate change, basically saying that it's no longer humanity's greatest threat, and that he is changing his focus onto other issues, um, things like hunger and energy and so forth. And he's basically doing a what do they call it? It says it there in the article, strategic pivot. This is all about his investments. There is no green investment pretty much anywhere in the world that has been a success. There is all the major ESG funds, or the social funds, environmental, social, and governance type funds, um, have all lost money, and they've all strategically gone backwards. Pension funds are trying to unwind their positions because the growth is just not there. Uh, and Bill Gates, and watch other multi-billionaires as well, especially the centi-billionaires, lefty ones, Soros and the like, um, Amazon's, what's his name, Bezos, they'll all pivot and totally back in all these other investments. Bill Gates has got large investments in um, small modular reactors, especially thorium style reactors, and some other technology that's in that industry to support the AI growth. He was behind Microsoft's move. Was it 3 Mile Island? Or was that Meta? And he's the other one. Basically restarting some nuclear reactors in the US because AI needs gigawatts of energy, not megawatts of energy. And we basically, um, there's not enough energy on the planet at the moment to lift up the AI race. So his pivot and moving his money is more about him making more money in AI. But watch this space. This is just the canary in the coal mine for the destruction. Um, Sorry, not the destruction, the reconstruction of billionaire portfolios into once taboo investment areas. Um, but they'll come out publicly, and they'll be supporting coal, gas, oil, you name it. They'll be supporting it, and they'll come out and reframe it as we need a mix of energy for the coming world, and especially to bring people um, out of poverty. One of Bill Gates's interviews that he gave, I can't remember. I think it was the Human Rights Commission. He basically said the easiest way to bring people out of poverty is to give them power, give them energy, cheap, reliable energy, and he knows that the climate change bullshit will stop that. So um, it's not easy. Yeah. So he's not doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He's doing it out of the goodness of his wallet. So anyway, that's a very interesting thing. It's all starting to crumble on them. This is a worrying trend, and this has been going on now for a long, long time. And um, it is the only genocide that is happening on the planet right now. Um, and it is the basically Muslim war against Christians, and it is spiraling out of control in Africa, more and more. Um, every year, approximately 4,500 Christians worldwide are murdered. Many burnt alive in their churches, as in Nigeria and Sudan and other places in Africa and the Middle East. Um, Trump highlighted the situation a week or so ago, and it has started to grab some headlines out of the major press. A lot of them are still saying it's bullshit and it doesn't happen and this, that, and the other. There's a group called Open Doors International that have been reporting on this for a long, long time. Another individual, which you may have heard of, a guy by the name of Sam Childers, and his orphanage program in South Sudan. He's commonly referred to as the machine gun preacher. And he has been rescuing predominantly Christian children in the Sudan area, Mali, um, um, what's the other one? Rwanda, Uganda, and in that Central African area from. So he's basically rescuing the children from murdered Christian parents. And he's been doing this since the 80s, 90s, and has been trying to tell people that this has been going on over there for years. And it's it's just heartbreaking to see that the media will and uninformed individuals run around saying, you know, that what was happening in the Middle East with Gaza and that was a genocide when the true genocide was under their eyes, and when people are confronted with it, they just deny it. And this is the problem when you got a virtue signaling community that have absolutely no idea what they're on about. This is something that the world should be turning to and jumping up and down about. Um, and and if we don't support our own Christian faith and values, um, the murder of Christians will happen on our soil here. We are in a cultural war around the world, and it is basically between those that are of Christian faith and those that are of other faith. Christian faith can have many different um, uh, packages, if you want to say, or forms or types, but pretty much the Muslim Islamic uh, culture is not compatible with a Christian um, culture, and we need to stand up and say that it's not. And there is good people on both sides. There's good people on in all religions and faiths, and there's bad people in all. But communities must call it out, and we basically got to pick a side. And this is one of the things that we've got to pick a side on. So I implore everyone to look out and work out what culture they want to have around them and what culture they want to be part of. And we've just got to start stamping out the one that we don't want. Um, so that's it. That's my take on this, and I think everyone should research this a bit more. This is a big thing. A friend of mine sent it to me today. I'd totally forgotten that this was happening. Um, the SWIFT, right, which is the worldwide interbanking messaging protocol that affects money transfers. Your MT 103s, your MT 760s, 799s, and so forth that are used for banking transactions. And it's how you move money between banks around the world. Has, as of today, what's today, the 10th? Sorry, 13th. So from today right the way through to November 22nd, they are switching on the interbanking blockchain system that is bringing up the whole digital backbone to Swift. So the old protocol for Swift, and I got to see a Swift terminal once, and it was basically an MS-DOS driven computer that had not progressed from the 90s. And before that, it was telexes. The banks used to send telex messages between each other, and then away they go. And what they would do is literally have accounts with a corresponding bank account with a corresponding bank, and then they would transact and settle off transfers that went both ways between, say, Australia and the US. The Westpac Bank here would have a corresponding account with, say, Bank of America, and then they would settle off at the end of day using the money deposits that were held in both banks, and net off the transaction and then send some over, send some back. And that's why banking used to take 3-4 days, up to 2 to 3 weeks to settle, because it wasn't your money that they were moving, it was the net settlement between them, and then they had to physically move more money or create a new bond or whatever it was so they could do the settlement. Now, this so the SWIFT is coming on board at the moment with 5 blockchain protocols, Ripple or XRP, XLM, Algo, Hash or HBAR, Quant, QNT. The XRP is being used globally, predominantly between the US and Europe. XLM is predominantly in Asia. Algo is a bit of everywhere, so is HBAR, and from what I understand, Quant is Middle East. So there is all these networks that are all going to use a stable coin to transact with them, and usher in the simplicity of moving money between countries is, one, going to speed up, but two, it will get cheaper, and it will then get a lot quicker. Now, most people think that, oh, this is how they're going to control you and all that sort of stuff. Very hard to actually control some of this stuff. Once it's on the ledger, it's on the ledger. And it's really the front end apps is how people are going to access this when it becomes consumer driven. At the moment, this is bank to bank, and it will stay bank to bank. So it's covering 200 territories, as it says there, around the world. It's about 1,400 different banks that are involved, and it will. The old way of moving money dies come November 22nd, and then they switch this on. So what I predict will be the next big phase of expansion is stable coins. Pretty much every bank, and I think I've said this before, every bank in the world will have its own stable coin. It will even get to the point where large corporations will have their own stable coin. So for instance, think about it this way: if you're BHP and you've got operations around the world, as BHP does, it operates in 20 or 30 countries around the world where it has mining operations. Well, on the back of this thing, they'll be able to move money between their different branches and operations using their own stablecoin. So they'll be able to let's say London office needs to pay or move some money to Brazil. So what it will do, it will then on the ledger move coins from the Brazil office to the London office to the Brazil office. The Brazil office, because that'll be the US's, so that'll be BHP's stable coin, and say it's stable in gold. Let's just say, because they mine gold, let's just say they back their stable coin in gold. The price of gold is known around the world. So what will happen is they'll be able to move those coins to the operation um, in Brazil. The Brazil will be able to take those coins and convert them to a local stable coin. So to a Brazilian real backed stable coin at a local bank. Say they go to, let's say, Banco de Brazil, and it has a stable coin that is connected to the real because they need to pay people wages, or they need to pay suppliers in the local currency. So what will happen is that so the gold stable coin gets moved, it then gets converted on the blockchain for a local stable coin, and then that digital um, money will get moved to the bank. The bank will then convert it if it's got to local currency um, in fiat, if it desires, or it will place the token into individual bank accounts. And I can only see this at this stage being corporate level. It will take some time to go down to the real people, because you got to remember, in the world there is still something like 65 to 70% of people in the global, out of the 8 billion population, are actually unbanked. Right. So you've still got a lot of places that pay people in cash. Um, the war on cash is only something that's really happening in the OECD 20 nations. It's not happening in a lot of other places around the world. A lot of other places around the world are using other systems as well. The barter system is still very big in African nations and in some places in Latin America. Uh, but so is other forms of banking, like with text messages and so on. So um, this will start off as bank to bank, government to government, money transfer into large corporations. The top 2,000 global companies, for instance, and then it'll slowly filter down through those that are banked. Um, and we'll go from there. But it's amazing how quick that this has happened. So I first heard about it about 18 months ago. Once it was around the time XRP were getting sued again, and that the files on that court case released how quickly Swift were moving. Then it went dormant and didn't make the media. And then all of a sudden, bang, they're rolling it out on November 22nd to basically 200 countries and territories worldwide and about 1,400 banks. This is massive. Now, some people reckon that CBDCs and all that sort of stuff. What Trump has done with the Genius Act, the only place that's going to basically try and usher in CBDCs is Europe, because Europe's on a path to self-destruction bigger than anywhere else in the world. Um, Everywhere else, including places like Australia, our banks will override the government. Um, Global stable coins issued by banks and companies will basically render local currency worthless. So what will happen is, and this is me just looking ahead, is take somewhere like Australia, is what will happen is there'll be no more centralized printing of currency, as in uh, the mint and the paper note printing that Australia does. A lot of that will slowly disappear. There'll still be some in circulation, because I can never see cash going away, but cash may differ. So what will happen is, in my view, is the banks will issue stable coins. Stable coins will be backed by assets, gold, silver, currencies, government debt mainly. Uh, if you have a look at how the Genius Act is written, it's all about government debt, right? It's about moving the 37 trillion out of paper and then dumping it into stable coins. And it's pretty much going to reduce the US's interest bill by a factor of heaps. Now, the same thing will happen with just about every country in the world. And what will happen is every bank, every institution, every major company will have stable coins, based on metals and government instruments. The government instruments will then form the backbone of the banking industry, but in a digital form. Now, what I see happening is if you want physical cash, you will go along to the Westpac ATM, for instance, or the Commonwealth Bank ATM, and then when you type in your whatever, it will spit out a banknote, but it'll be issued by the bank, backed by its stablecoin. It won't be a note issued by the government. Now, this actually happens in a few countries. Hong Kong is one where the three major banks in Hong Kong issue notes for and on behalf of the government. You can, have your wallet, you can end up with a HSBC note, a Hang Seng note, and who was the other one? Hang Seng, HSBC, Hang Seng. It's one of the other banks. I've just forgotten it. And some of the Caribbean island nations that don't use the East Caribbean dollar do the same thing. Like Butterworth's Bank issues notes in the Caribbean for and on behalf of the government. So we will actually start seeing more of this, I believe, where the banks will become the issuer of the notes. So physical cash won't disappear. You'll still be able to transact in physical cash. It'll just be a note issued by a bank that is then underpinned by their stable coin, which is then underpinned by the assets, the government debt, for instance. The interest rates on all that government debt will be fixed. So everything will be a fixed interest rate. So instead of now where nations have interest rates that vary depending on their stability or creditworthiness, it will just be a simple fixed 1%, 2%. So savings will pretty much become worthless, pretty much. If you've got cash in the bank under this system, you're going to get pretty much just enough to cover the fees. You'll then need to look for other ways of making sure that you are growing wealth. So it'll force money into the stock markets. It'll force money into bond markets. It will force money into property and so forth, because there'll be no interest-bearing system that'll allow you to save. So that's my big thought on where this is happening. I could be totally wrong, or I could be right on the money, or somewhere in between. But I honestly believe that we just haven't seen the stablecoin explosion that we're about to see. It is going to be phenomenal. One of the other things why I think this is happening is the amount of nations that are buying precious metals at the moment. And I'll go into that. I think on the next episode is the precious metal squeeze that is currently happening out there, where, for instance, London, was it last Friday or last Thursday, couldn't settle silver transactions from the London precious metals market, or the London metals market. They just literally had no physical, and they were borrowing it at rates higher than they were paying out. So they were pretty much losing money to try and settle silver transactions. But I'll dig into that more. And we'll see more and more of that happen as stablecoins move and the whole world readjusts to what's happening. But so watch this space, guys. This is really going to take off, and it's going to take off in a way that the globalists are going to get left behind, which is a good thing in my book. I think that Trump with the Genius Act has outsmarted them, and and him pushing the Clarity Act through that, because a lot of that is why this has been able to accelerate, is because there is direct, and mind you, Swift is being driven by the Americans at the moment, um, and it is 100% um, being sped up at 1,000 miles an hour because of the acts that Trump's brought in, and that's why his sons and all that sort of stuff are in the blockchain industry doing stable coins, is because they had inside knowledge. But that's how the world works. If you think insider trading is bad, get over it. The world works on insider knowledge, and if you don't have it or not looking for it, you will get left behind. So that's my take on this, and from what I've been able to gather, especially over the last, literally only the last 3 or 4 hours. Um, uh, I was text this, what time? 2:35 this afternoon. I was text that this was going live in November. Originally, it wasn't due to go live until mid to late next year. So, um, cool. All right, let's move on because I'm going to run out of time again. Um, oh, the fat capitalist can't go to the US anymore. Trump's going to ban me. He's going to ban fat people. Um, it's I would say when I heard it, I thought it was an absolute joke. I thought it was quite funny. But then when you read the article, it's actually about um, people that are moving there on green cards and could be a liability to their health system. He has just picked one area, but in the actual in the note, when you actually read more, it's more than just obesity. There's obesity, there's drug problems, so there's cardiovascular um, issues, which are more than fat people. I know a lot of people with heart conditions that aren't fat. Um, so this is just going to, it's basically trying to reduce the pressure on their health system, and their health system is fucked. That's the only way to put it. It's just absolutely screwed. If you get sick in America, you're better off going to Mexico. You're going to get better treatment. So I thought that was quite a funny thing for today. They're going to ban me from the US, which is fine. I don't need to go back. So Australia, where are we? Some headline stuff that I thought really interesting, and some topics that are coming around is the Indo-Pacific treaties. Um, the two big ones that Albo and cohorts have been able to get away, the PNG in Indonesia. These are big deals, people. These are really big deals because it's about creating a security shield, and creating, if you know about the first island chain, the second island chain, the third island chain, that lies here in Asia. This is about creating pretty much, it's crass to say it, but a human shield between Asia and us. Um, it's one of the things that Labor's been working on that I actually applaud them for. They have screwed up everything else, but pretty much are getting this right. It is a legacy from way, way back. This actually goes back um, uh, a couple of defense ministers ago, um, and pretty much can even nearly go back as far as the Hawke Keating years. Um, and they've been working on this. Now, yes, it's costing us a lot of money. The Indonesian pact, not really sure what that's going to cost us yet, but it'll cost us something. It's going to help combat the China and Russia entry and having them sit on our doorstep. Because at the moment, you got China pretty much in most of the islands up north, especially the Solomons, Tuvalu, um, and Palau in that area. And then you got Russia creeping in. They want to be in Indonesia. They want to be in Malaysia. They're talking to Borneo, Brunei in Borneo. Um, so they are looking to get strategic because they know the South China Sea is a shipping choke point. Now, if you want to cut Australia off, um, you basically block the Indonesian straits between Lombok and Bali, Bali and Java, Java and the next island chain up, the Malacca Straits between um, Indonesia and Singapore, Malaysia. If you do that, we're stuffed. That's where our fuel comes from. That's where a lot of our food imports come from. That's where a lot of our imports for pretty much anything to keep the country going comes from. So building this security shield will help us with that. Now, at some point, Australia is going to have to forward deploy into these regions to help back them up. And what that is, I don't know. Do we set up drones? Do we set up more intelligence gathering? Um, and do we set submarine fleets out there? Singapore's renewing their submarine fleets for intelligence and special forces deployment. Um, Malaysia's looking at doing the same, and we're doing it with AUKUS. We will also at some point rebuild some diesel electric submarines for the area, especially for intelligence gathering and for special forces deployments. But when that happens, we don't know. And so this is a good thing. Now, why does this matter? If you have a look at this map, I found this is the easiest map I could find. Excuse me. And it's based on two military packs that we've got going at the moment. One is AUKUS, one's Five Eyes, and sorry, the other one is the SSN program with the United Kingdom. Now, if you have a look, and this map is basically done as a globe, right, which actually gives you a better perspective of how things flow and where, in the Asian sphere of the world, how predominant we really are down here at the bottom with all our resources and land and everything. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to get direct attack, but what it does mean is that we are a strategic, basically the most strategic asset that the UK and the US, for instance, has for a major war that's going to happen in Europe. So if you have a look in Europe and Russia, right, which is what's happening is, and this is where I believe the next war is going to be up here in the north, um, is that Australia, we're right behind it, right? So we're not going to get attacked. But what comes out of this area in the South China Sea, where all the circles are, is what propels us. So we're an intelligence gathering country. That's where we've got, was it 13 odd intelligence bases all through Australia. And that's why we are a strategic importance for here, because if there is a war that breaks out in Asia, we're the eyes and ears for the whole lot, right? So the United Kingdom can send submarines through the top and down to help. The US can come straight through the Pacific, and the other way as well, they can come down through the Mediterranean and out through us. So they can actually then redeploy down to Australia. So it's more about them redeploying down and giving themselves a way to move up. Now, will we ever go to war with China? I doubt it. China doesn't want war. It just doesn't. It's got, 700 million people that they need to bring out of poverty. They are um, they are so worried about what's going to happen internally because the economy's fucking up, because Xi Jinping's driving them back to a communist regime rather than a capitalist regime that was under, Xi Jinping, Deng Xiaoping, and the old crew that basically drove China's growth. Russia is the same. It is trying to get itself back together after its collapse of the Soviet Union. Putin and the boys don't want to rebuild the USSR as much as the Europeans want. The reason the Europeans want to say that he wants to go and conquer all the Central Asian states, being Turkmenistan and in this area, is so that they've got a enemy for war. Uh, and he's got a lot of trouble at home with the poor in the Siberia in the east of the country. The east of Russia is very poor, but it's also very, very rich. The Vladivostok area, especially, which is Vladivostok is down here, is extremely rich in minerals in this central area, in the central area of Russia. So by us creating the security shield, Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, we fucked up on Albo is fucked up with Vanuatu, couldn't get the deal done there. The Solomons have already plonked themselves into the China camp, but that will change. There's some new leaders coming up in the Solomons that want to kick out China because um, China is raping and pillaging these countries for votes in the UN and on the Security Council. So they offer them stuff, and it's purely and simply for the vote. They're going to be the next powerhouse. They are the largest economy in the world, um, and not necessarily in dollar value, but they are the largest economy because they are producing everything for the world. Um, and if it was done on the same terms as America and Europe, China's economy would be like 5 times that of the US's with equivalent value. That's how much there is a disparity between manufacturing a good in China for $1 and selling it in the US for 5. Um, so that's why the US economy is so large, is because the dollar value is the dollar differential between where goods are made and services are used and the price that they're paid in. So that this is a very good map to demonstrate why we need that shield. It just creates that a security blanket, so to speak, in case everything goes wrong, but it then allows a security blanket for our allies in the north to come down and sit underneath. Let's pray we don't need it, and if we do, it's there. Um, my God, from global war to war in our streets, um, it's bloody amazing how quickly, 2 years pretty much, that Sydney, Melbourne, and now including Brisbane, has gone to just total crime. It's out of control. Governments don't know how to bring it under control. Half of them don't want to bring it out of control. This, I think, is all part of the movement to offer citizenship um, for um, your defense service, um, because this is how they clean it up, right? So they create the problem and then turn around and say, "Oh, we'll solve it by X," but it's so that they can send people off to war. Um, the cigarette issue is probably our largest problem at the moment, more so than drugs. Fentanyl's super bad uh, in our states and our cities at the moment, but I think that the war. I was dumbfounded when I saw that it's $82 billion hit to our economy through black market cigarettes and alcohol. That's just ridiculous. And that just goes to show you that having a government that is driven by money and not by delivering um, great outcomes causes these sort of problems. So what happens with crime, I really don't know. But something's got to happen because something will give. We will end up with vigilante groups or retaliation groups on our streets if we're not careful, if they're not already there. This is another one that's close to my heart. I'm going to run out of time. But we have this massive war on farmers still. We've got to somehow convince the city pollies that have no clue about um, where their food comes from or how food is produced, and we've got to stop the waste. And the waste in our supermarkets is the consumer. It's not laws. Um, Farmers produce way more food than we can actually sell because of the ugly veg problem, or what I call the ugly veg problem. And um, you know, cow farts and all this sort of stuff is nothing compared to the waste that is in our food system, purely and simply because consumers are fucking idiots. And that's the only thing I can put it down to. Because so what if a carrot's got a little arm coming off it, or it looks a bit funky, right? The we've been driven as consumers, and especially if you shop at Coles and Woolworths, um, you're part of the problem because they perpetuate this more and more, and farmers are having to generate 30, 40, 50% more just so they can get X amount of crop. But that reduces that 30 or 40% extra that they're growing, that's their profit. Right. So we need to change the way we think about our food. Um, Go direct to farmers and buy the funky fruits and vegetables, and get your meat direct from a farmer, and get your eggs. And I bought some eggs the other day. I think I mentioned this. I know I was mentioning it to a farmer friend of mine. I bought a dozen eggs direct from a farm out the back here, and out of the dozen, I had 8 double yolkers, and the yolk was so vibrant and the taste was just phenomenally. That's how good and fertile um, the eggs and everything were. Um, got some really good pork from down the road, massive, like big, thick pork chops, direct from a farmer. We just got to change the way, because as you know, no farmers, no food. And the more I look at it, it's the consumers that are more the problem than the farmer, because the consumer, you've got your wallet, you can make change, and so please stop the war on our farmers from a consumer perspective. Um, if you stop buying at Coles and Woolworths, they will change their way because they'll lose their they'll just start losing money. And if we don't stop the poverty that's happening in our farming communities, you're gonna go fucking hungry. It's as simple as that. So I once again, I just look at what you're doing, and if you can buy direct from a farmer, do it. Or if you can buy from a small business that buys from local farmers, do it. Yes, it may cost more. I know we're in a cost of living crisis, but the cost of living crisis will only get worse if we don't have food, right? So, um, and then by doing that, we can then put money back into farmers' pockets. The farmers can join with us, and then we can fight the pollies on the stupid thing about cow farts are destroying the country and you can't clear your land and all that sort of stuff. But if we don't have farmers, well, there's no point having those other fights. We have to support our farmers, and buy direct as much as we can. If you have a look at that food supply thing, basically go from grow to buy, cut out the three people in the middle. Yeah, okay, you might need transportation if you order online, but if you can go direct, go direct. Thank you. Today we saw the Libs dump net zero. I must say to you here, be careful of the language. The Libs are only dropping the net zero targets. They are not dropping Paris Agreement. They are not stopping renewables. They are not stopping the subsidies for renewables. They are not stopping anything outside of having a target. So pretty much all they're doing is buying your vote. They are not changing what's going to happen when they get in. They'll still be there, complying with Paris, having the COP 24, 28, 30, 31 meetings, flying around in their private jets and fucking the world, right? This is purely and simply about saving that woman's job. It is nothing else. I believe the Nats will cave because they want power and they want more money, which is what you get when you're in opposition than if you're just a normal backbencher. They are more power hungry than most of the Libs, and this is all window dressing. Do not believe the bullshit that they're putting out. Read the actual agreement. Go onto their websites and read the physical agreement. Don't read the headlines and the checkpoints, because what they have done today is as bad, if not worse, than what Scott Morrison did when he signed up to it, because they are now lying to you, and they are lying to you in a big way, because they are not dumping what is the main cause of all our problems, and that is not the net zero targets, but the Paris Agreement and the net zero legislation that goes with it. The Libs are using weasel words, and they are gaslighting you on this subject. So please don't return your vote to the coalition at this stage. Keep supporting the minor parties, because this is a treachery. This is more and more just bullshit from the major parties, or from the major coalition parties. Pauline said it today best. Scrapping net zero means leaving the Paris Agreement. Anything less is a con. And she is 100% right. So they will get a huge media cycle out of this, but all they're doing is stopping a target on paper, but keeping the mechanism and the subsidies and the drain out of your pocket and from your tax dollars alive, so they have a job. The only way to dump net zero is to dump them, kick them out, and get rid of them out of Parliament. All of them are treasonous at this stage, especially after this war of words. And the internal wars are deepening and getting worse and worse after this. But the only reason people are aligned on it is because they value their $250,000 a year job more than sitting around doing fuck all, because none of them get a job outside of Parliament. So please, people, don't buy their bullshit. Politics matters. I'll quickly go through the resolve poll from 4 to 8. Not much has really changed. The Libs are still under 30%, which means they're useless. Fon and Greens are still sitting around the 12%. Independents and others are around that 12, 13%. So at this stage, it's still ALP, and this is using their formula. It's hard to do a two-party preferred with the Greens and Fon being where they are, and the others and independents where they are. Most of those independents and others are actually conservative leaning groups. There is a couple of nut jobs in there, probably 1 or 2%. So the Fon number will drop at the election, and the Greens number will drop as well. I expect both of those numbers to drop back into single digits. The LNP will be back in the 30s, but the others will grow as well. with a lot of these polls, when you're only given limited boxes to tick, it's hard to gauge really where the world is at. But it just goes to show you that 30% or more of the population aren't with the major parties. And the major parties are both still losing votes. If that was the vote on the day, Labor lose 6, the LNP gain 3, One Nation get their first lower house seat right here in Queensland. Katter still has his seat up north. Um, uh, Centre Alliance in South Australia, she still keeps her seat. The Greens keep their one seat in in Melbourne. And the Nats pick up 2 seats, and they pick up 2 interesting seats, actually. They pick up one in Victoria and one in WA, which is, quite surprising. Actually, that they're picking up those sort of seats. But anyway, we'll see what actually happens at the next election. So thank you, and I look forward to next week. To see if there's any questions. Yeah, converting farms to trees is a really, really big thing. There's what is it? What do you say? 50 million acres of agricultural land. Yeah, it's huge. There is um, which company is it? One of the power companies, I think it's AGL, has just bought um in the Riverina district of New South Wales something like 10 or 15 farms, and they're all going to be turned from agricultural land into carbon sinks. That is a major problem because it's reducing our good grazing and broadacre farming land, which is which we don't need. We've got dwindling farmland and stuff now. So, alrighty, guys. Yeah, it doesn't count wind farms. That's exactly right. The thing. Just we will see, because the libs and that aren't really changing their net zero. There won't be a big fight on farmers losing land to wind turbines and solar panels and big batteries. Um, Big batteries are a disaster. We've just seen the Waratah battery basically blow up because of a transformer, um, and it's offline now, and probably will be for a fair while. So that's got to be taken out of the grid. But yeah, the fight on renewables is still on, but the coalition is not having it. It's having its own internal war. All right, guys, thank you very much. I've gone over time. I'd talk to you all in a fortnight, and we'll go from there. And let's keep watching this the rollout of the Swift thing, because I think that's going to be a major, 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 major transformation of our banking system in a way that I think could be okay for us. So, all right, guys, thank you very much. We'll talk to you all and see you later. Thank you again.